All right, Cop Talk Live, changing cop culture. Welcome to the channel if you're new, depending on the platform you're watching. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. I'm Dominic Izzo. I'm a retired police officer from the northwest suburbs of Chicago. I am a passionate advocate of law enforcement. I love law enforcement. I can't stand the direction it's headed today. And the goal of Cop Talk Live, changing cop cultures, is obviously to fix that, is to have the conversations, the discussions that kind of put the light on police, to shine, to put the pressure back on them and say, hey, listen, there's a lot of shit you guys are doing that is like, where is this coming from? And there's a lot of shit you guys are doing great that the media never shows, all that stuff. We want to have the conversations that put the police at that highest level of standard possible in any industry out there. I think that we have today now men and women who, they don't take the job seriously because we, as citizens, we didn't take the job seriously by giving them that pressure. So I critique law enforcement content, use of force issues, just regular stories, day to day, to kind of correct the perception of where the public is, because my audience is made up of two types of people. You're either the people who are 100% pro-police or the people who 100% don't support the police. And the purpose of the content of this channel is to have either side take a look and go, man, all right, well, that cop was infinitely bigger than that kid. And just because I liked the fact that he dropped him on his head for mouthing off to him doesn't mean the cop shouldn't have done it. That was beyond the scope of use of force that was necessary to effect an arrest. And then there's the other side of the public who's, oh, this is why the cops can't shoot someone in the leg, because this isn't the movies and it doesn't work that way. And I'm hoping as a responsible member of the audience of those who consume my content, you clean out your fucking ears and you listen. You pay attention and you discern properly, and you hold the cards out there and say, hey, listen, this is where I'm right, this is where I'm wrong, and this is where I could need improvement. This is it. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and go. Over the last several months, I've been doing some podcasts and interviewing some great people, and today is going to be one of them. This is Carl Anderson. I'm going to let him give his introduction. I'm going to let him tell him who he is, but I'm going to tell you this. I was blessed over the last several weeks of having a lot of guys slide in my DMs saying, hey, listen, I heard your story. I hear your story. I know what you went through. This is what I went through. And I try to respond to everybody. Carl sent me his information, and I watched 28 minutes of his documentary. That's all I can get through. He's got a documentary online. It's called Unbecoming, and we're going to get the links, and we're going to talk about that a lot today. I got through 28 minutes and was nauseous, sick. I felt my blood pressure rise. I felt this anger of what this man went through, because it's common, and it happens all the time in law enforcement. And I want to have him on today to talk about the inner workings of law enforcement that the public does not get, and how what he did we actually need more of, and how what happened to him the public needs to know and needs to be aware of. Carl, I appreciate you joining today, man. Thanks a ton for taking the time out to talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me, Dominic. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
So the 30,000 foot view, the 360-degree view, who is Carl Anderson? Give us the crisp version of who you were as a cop, and then we're going to get into what the hell happened to you.
Oof. So I suppose if you want to start, I mean, you can pick any point, but so I came from a law enforcement family. My older brother, Ben, who's 10 years my senior, became a cop in 1995. And, I wanted to follow in his footsteps. I saw the job. It looked cool, was inspired, propagandized by all the action cop movies that were going up at the time. I went to the academy in 2005. I was self-sponsored. And then throughout my time in the academy, I don't need to go there, but eventually, as an independent, self-sponsored, I was able to kind of be in a position where I could kind of pick and choose which agency I was going to at the time. And my older brother had just left the city of North Miami Beach, and he had a lot of connections over there. So, some people may accuse me of being a little Nepo baby, which probably, he vouched for me, and I was able to get hired at the city of North Miami Beach. And that city at the time was the most prestigious municipal agency that you can get on with in South Florida. One of them, at least. And people were like blown away. Oh, whose balls do you have to fondle to get a job over there? That kind of thing. Because that place was really ahead of its time in so many different directions. I started out young cop on FTO. I loved it. I couldn't believe that I got paid for it. It was like I was happier than a pig in shit. This was everything that I had hoped for, and I was a hard charger. I after FTO, I was a very, very proactive cop. Because that's the rite of passage. You want to go out there, you want to shake trees, you want to see what falls out. I was very proactive at the expense of my relationship with some of my coworkers in some sense too, because if you know anything about police culture, the proactive guy goes out there and then he causes a bunch of trouble for the people that just kind of want to sit there and, and I get it. And, I'm guilty as charged. I probably caused a lot of headaches.
I'm going to interrupt you here and there just to spice shit up all the time.
No problem.
Isn't it amazing that we frown upon that? Like you have to apologize knowing that you come in. I'll never forget it. When I went to my last agency, I had taken some time off and I went to my last agency and I was 39 when I went back on. And I'll never forget my commander. They asked me to pick up a shift. It was I think it was December 20th, and it was freezing cold out, Illinois. 2 a.m. And my commander calls me in and goes, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Why are you knocking down cars?" I'm like, what do you? And I'll never forget. It's like you got that right. It's like the gung ho. You went out there, you knocked down cars. You wanted to get the searches. You took pride and passion in doing the job, and then the old guys who are on duty, which at that point I should have been, were like, "Man, stop," because then you're going to set the standard. The command staff is going to look at us and say, we need to amp up our work. Why are we apologizing for that? Well, look, the fact that you mentioned that and then had to put that caveat, like, I admit it, it blows me away that we're all ashamed of that.
Well, I'll add to that, and by saying, there were some things that I probably should be apologizing for because, let's not forget, I'm a young rookie cop, and there's a lot of things that I don't know. And so, look, I think, I'm not throwing shade on anybody. Like there were some things that I had to get pulled aside about and set straight about. So I understand the dynamic. I don't apologize for being proactive, but there were some things that I was probably a little careless about as I was doing
your humility is why I wanted you on. I watched the documentary, and we're gonna keep getting into it. You were command staff, and you were fucked over by your command staff. The documentary Unbecoming is so important for people to watch because you watch this man who sat there and was in a position to lead others. And all it takes, like I said, 28 minutes. In the first 6 minutes, I texted you and said, I'm sick to my stomach. I watched it with it open. I barely watch shit. Somebody else DM'd me after I posted it yesterday, and they said, I've been 0 for 100 on people who post online. You have to watch this. And he goes, now I'm 1 for 99 after you posted it because they watched your documentary. And in watching it, everybody hears me say all the time, command staff is the root of all evil in law enforcement. And here you have a commander who is ousted by a bunch of guys they throw a coup and, oh my God, hostile work environment. So I'm like, all right, I want to hear what he has to say, meaning you're talking. And I'm listening to how you talk, the inflection in your voice, the way you carry yourself, the succinct nature of your dialogue, the energy and the vibrations coming out of your mouth. And I'm like, this is a genuine man. It's a genuine man. And that put me on the focus of saying, okay, now I want to listen to what these cops are saying. And that was where the real sick to my stomach shit took in. When we go back to that, again, what blows me off is your level of humility when you come to talking about your past. I shouldn't have done this. I apologize about this. I'm going to kind of push into you in this conversation to highlight for the consumer, the listener of this, that we need more men and women. I have no control over women being cops. So if we do, we need more like this that are like, Anderson here, who actually go out and do the job. So as we talk and we go forward, while you're paying attention to this man speak, you have to balance his level of humility and listen to him speak. I'll give him fucking accolades all day right now. And then hear how he's talking and go, shit, we need the hardcore leaders in law enforcement to be like this and not what we have today. So I want to preface that from the beginning. Your humility is far greater than mine. Your humility does balance the hard ass nature you bring in leadership from what I've seen. And, it's like if I will be commenting on that as we go forward, because I'm just blown away that you have that you're 10 years younger than me, and you're from a different time that has a skill set most people don't, but continue.
Well, on that, as far as humility, I think the tactics aside, use defensive tactics or, verbal judo, whatever, all these buzzwords that they tell cops about, like, this is what you need to do the job right. No, I think what makes a perfect cop is a balance between humility and self-awareness, recognizing your humanity. That badge should not be inflating your ego. It should be inflating your humanity. And as far as my humility, that was not always the case, and that's a fundamental human truth that you learn in a hard job like this. That humility was beaten into me by people a lot better than me and my experiences. So get back to my journey in law enforcement. So I did all the fun stuff. I was part of some task force, some jump out stuff. I was all on patrol the whole time, but I was, I did whatever they let me do. Oh, hey, go sit on that house, go take the UC car and go do this. I was drug arrests, gun arrests, you name it. That was, I was happier. Like I said, I was happy as can be. And that all changed in 5 years into my career, when that would be my first taste of the politics involved in this job.
There was an email. I'll never forget where I was at the time. Back when I was a cop, we didn't have the phones that pulled up email. You had to print up your email and read it. And somebody gave me an email that I was reading while I'm in the toilet at the police department on my break, and it's giving the breakdown, years 1 to 3. You're gung-ho, you believe in this job, blah, blah, blah. It was years 5 to 8 that the reality of it sets in, and you're like, what am I doing? And you do see how the sausage is made in years 8 to whatever. So anytime somebody tells a story, whenever they say year 5, that's always the benchmark of when something that changes their views on stuff. So I want to point that out for a second, but go ahead.
Well, I think in my case, and in the case of everybody that was in my generation at the time, when you hear this, you'll see how, fucked up that situation was. We're in 2011. I started in 2000. I started at the agency in 2006. We're in 2011 at this point. And, the world is still reeling from the great financial collapse. And now you got a bunch of people who made their money in the private sector looking at pensions and government employees. So that became a huge issue with some of the city leaders over there. And they decided they wanted to come after our pension. What they wanted to do was our pension and our contract were two separate things. You couldn't touch our pension or our retirement benefits in the contract. And they wanted to merge it so they can change things. And I understand where they were coming from. They were seeing people retire with buku bucks, but they worked for it. And but anyway, part of that struggle was they started leveraging their power against the police department. And now they were going to lay off. At first they were going to lay off 24 officers. It ended up being 17. They took away our take-home police cars. And keep in mind, at the time I was in the SWAT team, and you would figure, you know what, for patrol or whatever, yeah, they don't really need take homes. But I was on an on call, and my entire team were on call. I was showing up to drug dealers' houses in my Mercedes, so it was just a mess. And I was on midnights at the time, and they changed our hours from, we used to get off at 7 a.m. Now we're getting off at 9 a.m. And I lived pretty far away, so I was having to deal with like 2 hours of traffic every day. Dude, they were just whatever they could. They were throwing paper on people, left and right. I guess the conspiracy theory was to, keep people from leaving. But it was just a really hard time. I think a lot of us at that time were on antidepressants just because of how shitty the whole situation was. But it was in that dark period in the city, and I kind of opened my eyes as to like what politics can do to this job. Everybody was disgruntled. Everybody was talking shit. Everybody, and something snapped in me where like the shit talking made everything worse. We can all agree that this shit sucks. Okay. But I got to a point, I'm like, dude, I can't keep, living in this negative environment. So it kind of like inspired me to ask myself, what the fuck are you going to do about it? Stop complaining, stop bitching, stop. So that's kind of the mindset that I took, and it kind of became, and I would build upon this throughout my career, but it kind of became my, the carrot on the end of the stick. I can only change what I can change. I can't change anybody else, but I can change my attitude about a situation. And it kind of, for lack of a better word, it kind of became like my hero's journey. How can I get to a position where I can affect positive change for everybody, all the shit talkers, because the shit talking is toxic, and it just really, it really poisons the environment. So I ran the gamut of the disgruntled, burnt out employee. I'm like, at the time too, there was, the show had to go on, and there were still a lot of things happening in the agency. So many people left. Like I said, they laid off 17 officers, and keep in mind, 5 years on, all my seniority was cut off below me. So now I'm stuck doing the shit deals, the shit details, and it was a miserable experience. But like I said, it was in that suffering and that misery that kind of a light bulb went off in my head. And I said, look, I have two options. I could either work to change something, or I could fucking leave. Bitching about it makes no sense. And at the time in 2011, I did, because all my friends had left, and I did get hired at Broward County Sheriff's Office at the time. But, at the time I'm like, bro, do I want to start all over, go back on FTO, do the whole song and dance, trying to, find my way over there? Or do I want to just kind of like weather the storm and let things get better? So I decided to stick it out. And that kind of, throughout I would say throughout that first 10-year period, things sucked. Things were really bad, but new administrations were coming in. Eventually we were getting the things back. They worked out the thing with the pension. And then 2016 rolls around. And then they decided, oh, by the way, you guys that got hired in 2006, that have 10 years here now, we're actually changing the pension. And the retirement actually, it used to be 25 or 20 years at 60%. And then they changed it to 25 years. So 10 years in, I'm being told that they're changing the rules of the game. and that now they're adding an extra 5 years to my sentence.
I've always said, for in some way or shape or form, if you look at a majority of departments, it blows me away. You could have a town of 30 sworn, town of 300 sworn, and you're not going to get every single person retires with a pension. It's always been I believe at the time, I was very new to how the pension worked, and I was on the fiduciary board, and I guess our pension was like something like 23% funded. And it's like, I guess there's a certain legal threshold that it has to be funded. And I started to think, I'm like, if these villages are always in a position of hey, we have no money and this and that, what's the best way to avoid having to pay cops pensions? Find a way to force them out. Mm-hmm. Make the job tougher on them. Start doing shit to where they go, screw this, I'm out of here. Don't fire them because you'll get lawsuits, this and that. But let's pressure the shit out of cops to do that. So it sounds like that's just commonplace all over. Is admin, village, the village and city halls, they come up with unique ways to get cops to go, fuck this, I'm retiring, so they have to pay pensions.
Yeah, and I heard you on one of your videos mention that, and it sounded like a very logical theory when I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they're shaking the tree to seeing how many people they can get to fall out. But yeah, it was a rough time, and all the while, other people were getting promoted, and then we were all like, us that were kind of pissed off. We're like, oh, company man, suck ass, this and this and that. Well, it was,
which is hilarious because when you talk, I'm going to tell you, the two people you reminded me of the second you opened your mouth were two guys who influenced my career. Number one is the current chief of my first department. He was my FTO. Wayne Wildy, you remind me so much of him. It's ridiculous. And there were times we mocked him. We were like, oh, this and that. But I'm not in law enforcement anymore. He's going to fucking retire as a chief in like a week or two. Right. So, all that mocking we did really paid off. And then Tim Mitzvin, who retired as a sergeant. Yeah, gung ho, fit. He was on our version. Illinois has a version of SWAT called NIPUS. And he was on that. And just his first, I'm not trying to say his business, but there may have been relationships in his life that were extremely important that were sacrificed because he was dedicated more to the job of being a cop than his own family. You remind me of those two men. So it's like when you're talking about company men, this and that, I've used that word, and I think it's used inappropriately from coming from my mouth. The company men are who we want because they represented the job in the best way when they have the balance like you have the humility that I talked about before.
Yeah.
So you're not the guy that would arrest his own mother, but you are the guy that would arrest his own mother if she fucked up pretty bad. That's what I think that we need out there. So when you say company man, I actually see you as one, but that's not a negative thing. So
what I'll say is this. I mean, there's a difference between company man as in I respect the system in place. I respect what the rules are, and I respect the game. Like whether you're talking about admin, whether you're talking about IA, I respect the structure. Because on paper, it's everything's correct. It is in practice that things start to fall apart. And what I'll say is, look, this job is so full of cynicism. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that make guys cynical. But you tend to learn if you just kind of, be cynical, be disgruntled, but you learn if you can just go a step beyond that. Cynicism is the beginning of wisdom because now you're not naive anymore. You know how the sausage is made. You know how the game is played. So now you've kind of, you've added that to your tool belt, and you can bob and weave and learn how to navigate the system as it exists. And hopefully, if you're good at your job, you can be put in a place where you can affect positive change. Because I'm sorry, we're going to say something?
I was, because that's where it goes. That's where it goes wrong. You are the type of person that it seems. I talk about this all the time with me. If you and I are on a weight loss journey together, and my fat ass wants to lose 20 pounds, and you go, dude, you could do it. I believe in you. Well, I'm going to go, okay, whatever. But if you go, oh, you're a fat fuck. You're a piece of shit. I will go, fuck you, dude. Negative reinforcement is the only way that anything works for me. It just really does. it sounds like you're on the point of negative reinforcement turns you into, I can be the change. I want to talk about this caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly effect where you go through this, and anybody, I don't think it's going to take too much. The public won't understand this, but anybody who listens to you talk for the first 10 minutes goes, yeah, I get that pressuring. But now you took it and you're like, I want to make a change, and you test, you get promoted. I'm assuming sergeant's first rank. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear you got, because when the documentary opens, you see your background. Tactical, educated, clearly you know the Constitution and the law, and you brought it to work, but you're beaten the shit out of by the brass and the politics. But then here's an opportunity to change and lead righteously men and women. Our experience from my department when I first got on was we had 3 patrol officers who were the first month I was on. The guys I worked with got to work with them for a couple of years in the street, but then we had a retiring. 3 guys retired, 3 guys got replaced. We loved our new sergeants. And I always name names. Dave Hare, we fucking worshiped you. We would have followed you into war. You were the greatest thing in the world for a time. Where were you? What was Sergeant Anderson like when he first got hired? Because he comes from patrol, or gets promoted. He comes from patrol. You're seen by other people as gung-ho, company man, kiss ass, blah, 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 maybe a little bit in cynicism. But then all of a sudden, you get the chevrons and you're sergeant now. What was it like for you? How did it change you to become part of command, part of brass? And how was it, your leadership with the guys underneath you in the beginning?
Well, I'll start by saying my goal, I never saw myself playing the promotion game. Like, not really. That's not something I ever really took seriously, because I was, although I was on patrol, I was still doing, investigation stuff. I was doing fraud stuff, and I was doing social media stuff. I really care about the image of this profession. So it was never really for me, I felt like there was so much more to learn, but then I would see these 3, 4, 5-year guys getting promoted. And I'm like, bro, if I have so much, who the fuck are these guys? And I started to see, cracks in the system that were a cause of just unfamiliarity with the job. I saw people leading with their egos, and I felt compelled to step up and take a leadership role because, and look, I'm not a shit talker. That's what people need to understand about me. I don't talk shit about people. And as we progress into this conversation, I'm assuming that your audience is going to start hearing things that are going to sound like me shit talking people.
It is shit talking. There's a way that needs to be. Go ahead.
I want people to understand. I'm not. If you hear something that sounds like shit talking, I'm shit talking ideas and actions. I'm not shit talking people. Okay. Some people's ideas and their actions and their behavior sucks, and I'll be the first one to call it out. So now that that's out of the way, I felt compelled to take a leadership role because I saw, frankly, some of these people didn't know what they were doing. And I'm like, I don't know everything, but I know a lot. And above that, I'm willing to learn. Did
the department encourage inexperienced people to test for sergeants? Because I was year 2, and my sergeant asked me to meet him up car to car one afternoon, and he's like, "You're not applying for the sergeant's test," and I said, I have 2 years on. I go, I don't have the right to do that. He goes, no, we encourage everybody to take the sergeant's test. And my thought was, okay, so what if I just blow everybody away on a test and an interview process? You're going to promote me? So did your department encourage those who were unqualified to test for positions?
I can't speak for what they did. I mean, we all know that law enforcement is very cliquey. Yeah. People have their little in groups and their tribe, and they like to, and look, I would encourage people to take the sergeant's test, just so they know what they're getting into. And, as a sergeant, we'll get into that, but, I would kind of appoint people like, hey, you're A/ today. Do me a favor. This is how you This is how you do this. This is how you do that. Are you willing to do that for me? And you want people to take a leadership role. You want people to take leadership seriously, because leadership, it starts at the individual level. You got to have your shit together. Okay. And you're not going to be able to lead people if you don't have your shit together. So you want everybody to be an autonomous little agent that you don't have to worry about. So to get to my ascent into leadership, my foray started in leadership started as a corporal. Now, you can get a whole conversation about the corporals at the time. They really never existed. They were basically, it was union busting, because they didn't want to promote any sergeants. They're like, oh, what are we going to do? We'll make a bunch of corporals. And, there was like the corporals for a period of time, a couple of years, they ran that place. In fact, people were joking around. They renamed the sergeant's office the corporal office, just because that's all you got was corporals. And that was a result of, them not wanting to pay the money to promote sergeants, and sergeants bitching that they couldn't take time off and this and this and that. So I drank the Kool-Aid. I said, yeah, you know what? There's an opening for the corporal position. Let me throw my hat in there and see how I can do. So I was a corporal. I got promoted to corporal in, I want to say 2019-ish.
So you're on for a considerable amount of time at this point. You are seasoned. Yeah. It's not like this is year 6 in your promoted leadership. You have paid your dues.
Yeah. I was an expert patrol officer. Everything else aside.
I love that answer, because that's going to come into the part of the documentary. I had a big fucking problem that some of the guys that worked for you said. I love that you have the confidence, as you should, to say you were an expert patrol officer. Fuck, we need more of that. Continue.
So I was a corporal from 2019 till about 20, was it? All in all, I did about 3 or 4 years as a corporal. And I had put my name into some sergeants' tests, and I had died on some of the lists, which is it's a coin flip, and I'm the type of person where everybody, when it comes to specialty units or promotions or this and this and that, everybody's like, oh, the system is rigged and the favoritism. And I've never, I can see that, but extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So my answer to myself was, if you didn't get this, you didn't work hard enough. Whatever other, whatever other conspiracy theories you have, it's my fault, that if I didn't get something. So I was actually getting ready to go to transfer into the detective bureau. And then my name comes up on an actual promotional list. So I had this, this kind of, this choice to make. I have, I can either, at my stage in the career, I can either go into the detective bureau, or I can go into leadership as a patrol sergeant. And I thought to myself, where would I be most valuable? There's plenty of things about the investigations unit that I don't know, that I'm going to have to learn from scratch. But I'm confident in my ability to lead patrol, So I decided, I'll take the promotion. So I got promoted in 2022 under Chief Richard Rand. And he was a great guy. And we can get into, it disappoints me that you only got about half hour into the film. I get that it's a big ask.
It was fucking emotionally uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah. Well, all I'll tell you is it gets a lot worse, So I got promoted in 2022, and, everything was going great. And keep in mind, I'd been doing the same exact job for 4 years before as a corporal, and nothing had changed. It's and my leadership style. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. What they see in the documentary. I don't consider myself a hard ass. If I do come across as a hard ass to any of these people, it's simply because my tone or my the tone of my criticism is directly proportional to somebody's willingness to take responsibility.
That's a problem that pretty much is the tip of the spear for the conversation is I watched the sergeant in the internal affairs who was investigating you, and at one point he makes a comment talking about, did your tone when you were counseling somebody change? And you said, absolutely not. And he goes, oh, you're a better man than I am. And in my view, it sounded like, I never trusted internal. And it sounded like, okay, he's trying to get you to be comfortable. Go, yeah, you're right. I did kind of yell at him. Oh, we got you. That's what it sounded like. But I want to set the stage here. So you are a seasoned, educated expert in patrol, 2005 to 2019. You've got the time on that now says this is a person we want in leadership. You haven't been. Now, I like giving people an opportunity to kind of give their bios and whatnot. I don't like to introduce. The reason being is it sets the tone for what the listener's going to listen to. We didn't hear you talk about, well, I did this and I did this and I did this. You didn't give a resume that was all about narcissistic behavior and this and that. You humbly waded into your career. That's the leader that we want because of the experience that you do have. And again, anybody who wants to see Carl's experience, go watch the beginning of the documentary. He's done some fucking shit, and that's what we want. We want men who've done shit, but they're silent professionals. I want to play this audio part of the documentary, which I think is the root of problem. This is where I want to go. Because for those who know, I'll surmise what happened. Guys felt very uncomfortable, and a hostile work environment was felt underneath Carl's leadership, so they formed a coup against him. I want to hear about your point of view from where here you are. You put in the time. You did the work, you did the training, you did the application, the blood, sweat, and tears, the passion. And then you hear that you bring your level of leadership to change, to lead, to just have righteous law enforcement. And these are the men that are underneath you. I'm going to play this audio. This is your statement, and then of some of the IA going on.
He's the one that when I interviewed him, he takes everything as discipline. To include you calling him into the sergeant's office, to him, that's discipline. For you writing an email to him, that's considered discipline. For the DORs through FTO, any negative comments are considered discipline to him.
I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding about the word discipline in this profession. We use the word discipline to define our commitment to a goal. So in the same way that somebody who lifts weights and eats right has the discipline to build their physique, somebody who holds themselves accountable and owns up to their mistakes has the discipline to build their character. I think this concept is something that a lot of young officers struggle with. I know I did, but you learn as you go that this is part of the process. These officers are going through the same thing, in my opinion. However, now it's dialed to 11 as we're all trying to navigate the feelings of this new safe space, trigger warning, participation trophy generation.
Talk about that leadership. That's what I want to hear. I couldn't have done it. When I went to FTO school, field training, for those who don't know, in 2015. It was February of 2015, and there were 35 of us in the class, and the first words out of the instructor's mouth is, get rid of no and because I said so out of your vocabulary. And we went, what? He goes, and he made an extreme example. You can't get in a gunfire and your trainee wants to do X, Y, and Z, and you go, get the fuck behind the engine block for cover. And he goes, why? Because I fucking said so. You can't say that, because you'll get through that scenario, and the next thing you know, you'll be in the chief's office answering why you bullied and you didn't take the time to listen to the trainee. So he said, those days are over. Well, that was 2015. Now you're sergeant in early 2020s and whatnot. How much did that come to fruition, and what was it like to lead people who they don't fit? Let's be honest. Your level of standard surpassed so many other people. Now you're trying to lead them, and how do you do that?
Well, look, man, I'm very empathetic and I'm very reasonable. Okay. So I didn't even hold these guys to the standard that I held myself because that's impossible. They haven't been through what I've been through. They haven't seen the shit that I've seen. They haven't gone through the motions. They haven't built that muscle for responsibility yet. So I have a huge cavernous threshold for mistakes. I don't care about mistakes. What I care about is your willingness to learn from your mistakes and acknowledge, yeah, I fucked that up. It's not hard to say at all, no matter who you are, no matter who you're talking to, whether you're talking to your sergeant or the chief of police, and this goes for everybody, the citizens. Yeah, you know what? I fucked that up. Sorry. I'll try better. It's not that hard. But today's generation, and cops in particular, you brought up this because I said so attitude. That transcends the leadership aspect. That's every cop, because that badge and that gun and that authority, it's this false certification that I have, like I can tell people what to do because I said so. And I'm sorry, if you cannot articulate your reasons, if you can't be comfortable with arguments and debates and articulate your thought process to use the Socratic method to find the right answer to any different problem, then you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Okay? So I've never been the guy, I'll give you 3 reasons because I said so. No, man, you want to have a debate. And I tell these guys, I told everybody I ever supervised, look, I know a lot, but I don't know everything. So if you think I'm wrong about something, let's talk about it. And it reminds me of one of my times when I was on the SWAT team. We trained with Miami-Dade County at their shoot house. It was this really cool facility. We're basically shooting simunitions at each other. And what it's a shame I can't remember his name, but one of the things that he said, he was the team commander. One of the things that he said is that if there's a disagreement in tactics about, we should be doing this or we should be doing that, you know what they do? They put it to the test. They say, this team is over here, this team is over here. Let's shoot each other up and see who's right, And so I believe that, that method of just running things to their logical conclusion, like thinking critically about issues, I think that is so important. And a lot of cops, and especially supervisors, especially administrators, they don't have that attitude. They're not open to hearing, any type of dissent. Okay. And again, I'm not a shit talker. I told every single chief since my brain started working correctly in that agency, I told every single chief, what you can expect out of me is love, effort, and honesty. Okay. I will never be a suck ass. I will never be a brown noser. If you come to me, I'm assuming that you want the God's honest. You want the truth as I see it. Okay. And that's how I've kind of conducted myself. I'm not going to be a dick about it. I'm not going to, like, people need to be comfortable with arguments and in this profession, because they're going to happen. People need to be comfortable with uncomfortable conversations. And
they didn't sound like they were in what the IA guy was talking to you. It sounded like you looked at somebody and said, hey, do me a favor. Can you shine your boots today? And they're like, I just got disciplined. That's what blows me away is in the documentary, you heard what you just said is right. You have a bunch of men and women who have the authority to take away someone's freedom or life if they can lawfully articulate it. And it is because I said so. I said it yesterday on a podcast. I have used many times, this is my house until the investigation is over. I've used that. But if I went back to the PD and then I got criticized by it or counseled by a sergeant, I wasn't going to cower and whimper in a corner and, wait a second. So I was a bully on scene, but now I can't deal with being bullied. You hear about guys on here, professional police officers being asked, were you told to put your cell phone away during roll call? Well, yes. That's a cop. That's a fucking cop. What was it like having, and you said, and this is an argument that I actually disagree with. where you said it's impossible to hold people to your standards. On some way, I wish it's like, I'll use the example of the guys that you remind me of, like Tim. Tim was a guy that we all mocked to a degree, but behind the scenes, we all wanted to be like him. We all wanted to be as badass and as squared away. I wasn't a military. This guy was a Marine. This guy came in. He had so much pride, so much knowledge, this and that, and it cost him a ton. But we wish, to a degree, some of us, like me, males crave leadership. It's just an innate thing that we have. I wish Tim would have sat there and been fucking harder. I wish Tim wouldn't have been so kind in his deliveries and shit. I wish Tim would have, when we did training, go, you fucked that up, because I would have responded with, oh, I don't want to disappoint him. I want to meet his standards. This a different time. You come from a different era. I honestly think that the pendulum needs to swing back the other way, and men of excellence who are in, like, your experience and your training, yeah, I do think that the only way to change the shit pussies that we heard in your documentaries whining about how you get fucking ousted and some guy with 3 car crashes, 3 squad crashes in a 24-month period keeps his fucking job, blows me away. I disagree. I think there has to be a way that your standards are constantly met forward, but you demand those underneath you for that leadership attain what you would expect as standards because you were promoted as sergeant, because those are the men and the women that are going to be on the street and serving the public. How do we do that? What is the method to do that?
Well, the goal is to hold that to, look, we operate in the world as it exists, not as we'd like it to, The fact is if we got rid of everybody who couldn't be held to my standards, and the entire police department would be disbanded.
Doesn't it? I don't want to get long-winded, but right there, I get so much criticism for that all the time. I think every fucking day we need not robotic cops. We need cops who know they can recite the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Eighth and 14th Amendment. They know exactly what the law is. Their boots are shined. They're in shape. Every time I say that, because we said in the academy, we hold ourselves to a higher standards. You hear all the time, well, the job would be empty. Why do we accept that?
Well, the goal, especially when you're like, because look, man, these are young, really young guys, okay? And I was a young guy too, believe it or not. I know what it's like to, and God help me if I had social media back when I was a young rookie cop, and God help me if my biggest mistakes as a rookie cop were blasted out onto the internet. So I have a lot of empathy. I know what their frontal lobes haven't even been fully developed yet. But, yes, in a perfect world, we'd pay cops $500,000 a year and have nothing but a bunch of jacked BJJ experts that are, that are law with a law degree, and this, like, yes, in a perfect world, then we should accept that. But that's not the world that where the
public hates it is what you just said. We have younger, because I was 26 when I got hired. Oh, I wasn't mature enough. We have younger people who are making fundamental mistakes that the later version of us goes, man, I wish I wouldn't do that. But this is not like you screw up, if somebody says, I want a double chai latte with extra foam, this and that. Okay, I fucked up, let me make your order. When we fuck up as cops, the citizens pay the ultimate price for it. Our learning curve is at the expense of the citizen. Personally, I think more men like you need to have a fucking 1,000,000-watt megaphone shouting at the top of the highest mountain, this is what you need to do. This is the purpose for having you on this podcast as well, is to reach the younger officers going, all right, I don't want to give myself permission to make these mistakes because the citizen pays for it. It's a big issue why citizens can't stand cops, because we just accept it. Well, we're going to make mistakes. Sadly, there's a lot of times we just shouldn't. The frustration with you is, again, your humility is exactly what we want in leadership, but you can't get out of you. Yeah, this younger generation of cops just fucking sucks and they need their asses kicked until they understand what the job is. This is why Again, my tonality is sensationalism and it's hype and it's, and it's out there. The level headed of what we're missing. The biggest problem I have is hopefully getting answers from someone like you. You have the level of excellence, expertise, but we have a shit quality of police officer who's scared of their own shadow on the street, who takes it out on the citizen. And then you have the command staff that we want in place, but then you're vilified and you're ousted for doing your job. Where's the frustration in being that type of leader that we all need? How does that operate?
Well, again, I suppose, look, the answer to this conundrum has always existed in this profession, as far as I know, and that's strong leadership. And we talk about like the word cowardice, in my agency, and I'm sure agencies across the country, an act of cowardice is a fireable offense if you shrink from danger or responsibility. And administrators and supervisors need to recognize that cowardice is also present when you fail to take reasonable action to correct things that are wrong. And again, I go back to I was tasked with instilling order among a bunch of young, green, inexperienced rookies. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm up for the challenge. I'm the stereotypical head coach in a sports movie. Selected to lead a ragtag team of lovable misfits to glory. There's nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong with allowing cops to become better. That's the goal.
It's what we want. Yes.
And but in order to do that, you need strong leadership. You need people that are unafraid to have uncomfortable conversations. And unfortunately, and look, that's the way it's always been. If you're scared of, getting your feelings hurt, or you're scared of getting spoken to in a stern, strict manner, this is not the job for you.
The guys in the documentary came across that way. One of the guys who in the beginning talks about that he just couldn't describe it. He couldn't describe, and this is where I understand what he's saying, but the perception has evolved into so much more. If anybody asks me about my chief, it's like, my answer was always this: well, how can you prove X, Y, and Z that he did X, Y, and Z? And I went, yeah, are you married? Like, yeah. Well, do you know your spouse better than anyone else? Yeah. So if your spouse is talking to me, can you tell if your spouse is lying or telling the truth or alluding to something just based off of how they are? Yeah, same way, because I had that relationship with him. So when this one officer said under your command, he couldn't come up with specific instances, but you just kind of like had to be there in the error of things. I understand that. I get it. I've been disciplined for having my boots on top, which were muddied and whatnot, on top of my locker instead of in my locker. I've had discipline for failing to check my rear squad car, or the trunk of my squad car, because you go to a hot call and you didn't have time to do the squad check. So then when Sarge needs the jumper cables and it's in your car, but you didn't do the check before, here's your letter. I'm like, that's bullshit. But I understand it, right? They could do it. I didn't go, it's a hostile work environment. I went, this is petty and it's stupid. And I get the pressures of that. But you have the guys on this video talking about this was one of the biggest things that just blew me away. I went, are you fucking kidding me? You pressured in a good way, because pressure makes diamonds, your patrol officers to make sure that the probable cause in their arrests was righteous. And they had a fucking problem with that. I know your answer is going to be good and calm and level-headed and professional. I don't think it should be. I think it should be, this is what we have in America. We have men like you being forced out while cops on the street are not being held to the highest standard possible when it comes to arresting or upholding the law. And your command staff backed them. That's insane to me.
So my answer to that, and look, I'm I'm going to remain as level-headed as reasonably possible given the circumstances. That's just, I refuse to conduct myself any other way. But the problem is, Dominic, cops think they're special. That's what it comes down to. And they are special. We ask a lot from them. But cops need they need to get it out of their mind that they're, so many, this thing gives people a God complex. Mm-hmm. And that's wherein lies the problem, like that badge, like people need to think about it like this. As a cop, you are a temporary custodian of unfathomable power and influence. And people don't even consider. They just think it's, they think that's just the natural order of things. And so people need to understand what that does to somebody's psyche. And that can only get some people, they're natural and they recognize, yep, I'm into this job. This is the responsibility. Most cops. But for some people, particularly younger cops, that has to get beaten out of them. Okay. That's the only way. They need a controlled demolition of their ego throughout this career. And it takes strong leadership to accomplish that. Okay. Some people arrive at that conclusion on their own. But that's what the problem is. And then that gets exacerbated. That I'm special sentiment gets exacerbated when they go to the SWAT team. Oh, now I'm super special. No, I'm the guy that the cops call 911. Or I'm the guy that shows up when the cops call 911. Like that type of shit. The thin blue line Punisher logo crowd. And look, listen. I'm not talking shit. I get all that. In some aspects, a lot of that is needed. You need that clique, that camaraderie. But so many cops, they live in their own fucking echo chamber and just sniff each other's farts on a routine basis. And it's normal. Okay. We're a very tribal species. Okay. So I recognize the reality of that, but I encourage cops out there to, have one foot, make sure you maintain and cultivate friendships with people from all walks of life, because the whole world isn't just a bunch of cops. The whole world isn't just the videos that you've seen in the academy of these cops getting shot all the time. So I understand the psychology behind it, but at some point you need to grow up. And
do you think there's a separation between, because we had it, right? The academy, I say all the time, the academy was ingrained in us this fear that every call you went to, you were going to die. It's like the 90-year-old lady that calls you because she can't find her mailbox. She's going to turn around and you're going to turn around and go fight. It's right there, ma'am. And she's going to be pointing a pistol at you. You talked about the Punisher logo. That was later on. I could not believe closer to 2020, you had cops who were wearing Punisher logo on their shit. And I'm like, do you realize Frank Castle's a fucking murdering vigilante? Now you're sending the message to the public that that's what you're striving for, to kill people. Do you think that through the course of evolution of the clique that you talked about, that it started with Thin Blue Line, Brotherhood, and I saw the progression of the involvement you were on during the Obama administration, and Obama, he started the war on police. The moment he said the Cambridge police acted stupidly, that was the shot heard around the world to the war on police. So you lived through that. Did you see an evolution that created that clique, that brotherhood, that separation of the citizens that we swore to uphold and us? It's us versus them. Did you see that? And then the second part to that is, what did that become when the candidate process started allowing some subpar people to get into that brotherhood, and how much damage did that do?
Well, I don't know if the Obama administration, it's hard to say. I'm just trying to look back and think of it. There were wild times, I can't say for certain whether or not that kind of calcified the tribal nature of this job, but it's always been a boys club, man. And it always will be. And people just need to grapple with that. Okay. And look, I'm not like, I understand that that's needed. Like, it not needed, but I understand it's natural. Okay. It's natural to want to feel a part of something. The problem that happens is when you're so insulated in that group and you start to have this us versus them mentality. Mm-hmm. And you see it all the time, like cops, they only hang out with cops, they're all drinking buddies and stuff like that. And they look at, and I would talk to other cops about this too. Like one of the things I love doing, especially during like the summer of love and all this, I love explaining things to civilians that aren't obvious to them. You mentioned the whole, why don't you shoot him in the leg stuff? I have those conversations, but so many of my brothers and sisters, they think it's a fruitless endeavor. They think it's useless. They look at the public and the civilian world. They think of them as like muggles and Harry Potter. They're not us. I don't need to justify anything to anybody. No, you should talk to people, because that's how we get out of the mess that we're in our country. So as far as the new guys, yes, I think you talked about the young man who was upset, or he was saying that there was something in the air. I can feel it in the air tonight.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you exactly what happened. Some of these guys, and I'll be point blank, they were shit cops. Okay. They were shit cops, and I was having to correct things on a routine basis.
I want to stop for 1 second. Let's go by your standards, because this is important. What is a shit cop? What made them shit cops?
An inability to take responsibility, somebody who is lazy, somebody who bones their coworkers. Those are just the things that come to mind. Okay. Somebody who is unwilling to, like I said, I said this before. I have a lot of forgiveness for mistakes. I will go out of my, if you did the wrong thing for the right reasons, I'm not, we'll have a conversation about it. And I told these guys too, I have this conversation with everybody in roll calls and one-on-one. Listen, don't make me, I hate paperwork, and I hate unnecessary paperwork. I don't want to issue, corrective action or paper for something that can be fixed with a conversation. So my deal to you guys is, would you rather have a bunch of bullshit paperwork in your personnel file, or would you rather have a one-on-one talk man-to-man and try to fix a problem? And, everybody was like, oh yeah, I don't want paperwork.
Do you regret that path, knowing that probably the documented counseling would have sat there and probably saved your ass?
I regret nothing. I did my job. I'm proud of my service. Now, would that have helped me? Maybe, but yeah, I'm not going to change the way I do business for self-preservation. Like, yeah, liability. Oh, you CYA, this, all that. I'm sorry. One of my biggest goals for when I got promoted is authenticity. I'm not coming, like I said, I'm not the because I said so sergeant. I'm the guy that's going to think rationally and critically about the issues that we're grappling with and have a discussion with people to try to come up with and do the right thing.
Yeah. The problem is, though, the lack of, some people are going to see is CYA, cover your ass as negative. And at this point, the people of the town the city you worked in, they lost now because of your failure to be somewhat a little bit selfish and cover your ass. They lost you, and they keep these abhorrent shit cops on the street when they should have had you. And this is a problem. This is why, like I said, I hate command staff, but every now and then there's a commander out there that's like, holy shit, this is somebody that we should follow into war, and your standards should have been pressed on them. When you listen to the documentary, again, the first 28 minutes that I heard, somebody's complaining because you said no cell phones and roll call, and they're going to argue with you about that, or the challenge of the loitering and prowling charge that you guys had a debate on at the podium, and they're going back and forth with you. We didn't do that. You just knew. If Sarge said, put your phone away, well, back then we just had Nextels. You had your fucking phone away. If Sarge brought something up and he embarrassed you in front of somebody else, you took it because it was a pecking order. Last time I checked, it's a paramilitary organization. So going back, considering the fact it's a paramilitary organization and paperwork is the foundation, it's liability coverage. It's all it is. I know you don't regret it, but do you see an error in the way of going, yeah, I gave all of these young recruits, these shit cops, the benefit of the doubt. I treated them more like, like I'm an older brother, and I gave them the respect they were due. And instead of documenting everything that could have saved me in the long run, when they said, hey, Sarge is creating a hostile work environment, and then you've got, no, I've got the legitimate paperwork that these are their disciplinary actions. Do you sit back and go, I think that it would have been more prudent and crucial for me to cover my ass, because now the citizens suffer. I mean, in some grandiose way, you're gone, and because you wanted the standard of probable cause at the highest level possible for a righteous arrest, that's gone. And maybe now one of the shithead cops that was underneath you is going, I really didn't see him do that, but I'm going to fucking write in the report that I did, because integrity's gone. You had integrity, they don't. It's not a regret, but does it frustrate you knowing that you gave grown men the benefit of the doubt on something, and they abuse that, and they're probably fucking abusing people's rights now?
So what I would say to that is, you make a very good point. Okay. I would say my biggest shortcoming, if I had to call it that, my biggest blind spot was assuming that my administration had the best interest of the agency in mind.
Yeah.
Because historically in that agency, listen, I'm a product of my history. I handled things the way that we had done them historically. Because look, I'm not talking shit about that agency. That agency was a fantastic organization throughout its entire history. But there was this little period of time where things just fell apart at the seams. Okay. And my own lack of foresight to see how bad things had gotten from a leadership perspective above me, that's where I went wrong.
How did that feel? What was it like knowing you pour your heart, your soul into something? You're not going to toot your own horn. I'm certain others looked at you and said the same thing I do. You're a man of integrity. You're what we want on the street. And then the next thing you know, you're betrayed. What was that like?
It was the first time. And look, man, I've been through some shit. I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. It was the first time in my career that I experienced what could only be described as malevolence, even from the people on the street. Like, look, if I get into a fight with a subject out on the street, it's self-preservation. It's nothing personal. It's just business. He's going to throw some punches. I'm going to throw some punches. We'll figure out who wins that. Okay. But so I don't even chalk up the bad guys or the subjects to, I don't even consider that malevolence. My own people, for them to get together and look, it's so easy to understand how it happened too. It's like these guys, the shit cops that were getting, their pow for, their fuck ups, they were just getting together and shit talking, commiserating with each other, saying, "Oh, this guy, he's doing this and he's doing that, and oh yeah, this he wanted to, make us do an illegal arrest," and they sit there in their own kind of their own little bubble, and they conjure up these stories about who I am as a person. And that's how that happened. And look, I don't care what people think about me. What people think about me is none of my fucking business. I do not give a shit what people think about me. So you want to go pout and cry in a corner and talk shit to all your little friends? It doesn't bother me one bit, okay? But for the administration to entertain and not recognize that this particular group, and take a poll from anybody else that they worked with, this particular group were some of the worst cops that agency had ever seen. And here I am up for the challenge saying, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm working with who I'm working with. I'm going to fix this problem. And for them to just betray me and abandon me like that, it was unforgivable.
Your brothers in blue, how was it afterwards? You're out. Did they give you the option to resign or retire, or were you terminated? What was the outcome?
No, so and the documentary kind of goes into this. It's after this interview, or after everything had settled down. And keep in mind, like, everybody in command staff is like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, well, nobody ever apologized, and that that can be in its
open
own,
the door for liability. Yep.
Yeah, but they were like, "Hey, yeah, don't worry. We all know exactly what's going on. Everything's gonna be all right. You're gonna everything's exonerated." Like, I'm having conversation with and again, look, man, I'm not bitter about the experience. These guys said some wild shit about me, okay? And which was just debunked thoroughly. And at a point, it was just like them throwing shit at the walls to see what sticks, just because they had it out for me, And like, whatever, man, have at it, bro. I'm an open book. Come look at how I do things. The worst part, and again, this goes into the politics. That place was just falling apart at the seams. And the documentary goes into exactly what was happening there. But it was a problem with the very tip of the leadership. Not even most of the administrators, we were all on the same page. Okay. So after all this goes down, I'm being told that, yeah, just go through the motions, do this, stay away from these guys. Then they put me back on day shift, where I didn't really want to be in the first place. A promotional exam for captain came up, because I was a patrol sergeant, and in my agency, we didn't have lieutenants. The lieutenants' responsibilities were kind of divvied up between the sergeants and the captains. So I put in for the captain's promotion and did what I needed to do. I took it. I scored number one by far out of every other candidate. And on the same day, I'm being told that the chief had ordered the internal affairs investigator to change the findings of his report to find me at fault and to find me responsible, which, blew me away. I'm like, how? Look, and it was at that point that I realized that, yeah, I'm up against some pretty wicked shit right now. Like, this is indefensible. And again, I'm a very reasonable guy, man. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk this out, and I will see things from other people's perspectives. That's a superpower of mine. I can really empathize with people, and I have that theory of mind to recognize, when somebody makes a good point. And anyway, I'm number one on the captain's test. Then the chief decides she's going to use the historically unusual rule of three to skip me. And we all know why she skipped me. It's because she wanted it. I don't even think it was that personal against me. It was because she wanted to promote somebody else on that list. And which is, frankly, it's her right to do that. But coupled with the fact that I'm being, she was trying to claim that I was responsible for the low morale, which is complete horseshit. That place was a dump. And I was the guy that was having to go to roll call and kind of tell these guys with a straight face the silly bullshit policies that these guys wanted to implement. I was never the guy that bitched to my subordinates. I always, if I bitched, I was going to bitch upwards, because you don't want them exposed to the toxicity. You don't want them to see that, you don't want them to see how things are falling apart above you, so you try to shield them from that. So she decides she's going to skip me. And on the same day, she puts all, she has the IA sergeant rewrite his findings to hold me responsible for everything. And man, dude, I was pissed. And what made it worse too is like the sergeant, the IA sergeant, after I got, that gut punch about getting skipped and being held responsible for everything, I texted him, requesting copies of the file so I could, I'm going to fight this. I'm not going to. Oh, and what was really stupid is the major and the deputy chief, they're the ones that handed me the documentation of this bullshit write-up. And they basically said, oh, just so you know, you can't fight this through the union, that it stands, and that's where this is going to end. So they're basically, it's, I'm sorry if I'm rambling here, but there was a lot that happened, and I'm trying to pinpoint what I need to, but give me 1 second to collect my thoughts. Because
what I want to point out as you're doing that is, and I'm letting you talk and I'm letting you ramble because people need to understand how emotional this is. I want people to, you use two words, which, you're in Florida. I'm in the Chicago area. We're not even remotely close to each other. I have said quite often how unbelievably evil and vile the experience from command staff was. And you use the words malevolent, wicked. People don't get it. What would make grown men, and again, when people hear me talk, I'm Italian and I'm loud, I'm boisterous, I use profanity. You're professional. You have been succinct, exact, convicted, calm in your delivery, and then it gets to this and you can see the emotion. You can hear the emotion, and people don't. What would make a rational, logical, professional police officer be triggered this way? People will never get that the command staff. I'll say it. You don't have to say it. I don't want you to agree. This is my views, not yours. You got fucked over because you were a professional, smart white guy. The guys underneath you were all minorities. Your chief of police was a black female. You got fucked over because of DEI. And it's not you who really gets fucked over, even though you were the lightning rod. It's the public. You go from this department that is just has such level of prestige to then when she gets in, it turns to shit. Your citizens, the taxpayers, are the ones who are going to be just suffering the most of it. So to get these messages out, to get this content out, to get people to hear your story, they should hear where you're at in your town and go, how the fuck was this man fired? They need to hear this stuff. So you're not rambling. You are expressing the need of what the citizens and people who in the position of power need to hear. Plus, you're also setting the tone for other cops out there to go, oh, if this guy had a target on his back, it can happen to me. Because people will never understand how unbelievably evil and malevolent command staff is. So ramble away.
Well, look, you mentioned the race stuff, and I need people to understand I never stray into those waters because they're dangerous and it's not useful.
I do.
But
You don't have to. I do.
Yeah.
I'm telling you that that's my view, not your view, completely 100% separate. You and I did not have a conversation about that before. You never bitched about it, this and that. How you are now is exactly how you are in private conversations. I'm the one saying it, not you, just so people know.
And look, I'm a white guy that grew up in Miami. I don't know how familiar you are with Miami.
Gotta be Hispanic.
Hispanic, Black, you name it. Okay. By all metrics, I am the DEI hire, you know, but what you need to understand about my upbringing, dude, I was surrounded by everybody, my closest friends. Very few of them would be considered white, you know. That has never been a hang up for me throughout my entire life, you know. I grew up in a very diverse area. I was the white boy, you know. For people familiar with South Florida, I grew up in, you know, the Richmond Heights area, Cutler Ridge. It was like, if there was any such thing as a post-racial upbringing, I had it, you know. And I've never, yes, I can look, I can listen respectfully when people talk about Black issues or Hispanic issues, but I've never been a part of any tribe, and I will never let anybody put me in their tribe. Okay. I am Carl. Okay. That's all I'll ever be. But I grew up in public school. I've been hearing the whole race stuff, and I've watched it get ramped up and ramped up and ramped up to the point where, dude, the word racist has lost all meaning because it's a weapon. It's a linguistic weapon used to just try to hurt people. And some of the people that throw that around are so stupid because, look, there are racists in the world. And I am very much an anti-racist. I have been my entire life. I will listen carefully to the issues of any community, okay? The Black community, the Haitian community, the Hispanic community, you name it, you know, because at the end of the day, we're all people and we need to live in the world together. And our goal should be always trying to, you know, overcome any differences that we have because we're so much more similar than we are different. Okay. So I've been hearing, even before it became the DEI thing, bro, people were put into positions because of their skin. That's happened for 20 years. I mean, for as long as you hear of that stuff happening. When is it enough? At what point can we say, hey, this is a meritocracy? If you get in this position, it's because you earned it. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Okay. But I'm not going to participate in that system anymore. I'm not going to play a rigged game. And there's a lot of guys like me who are pretty fucking good at the job that are saying, yeah, same here. I'm not going to play that game. So leaders, city officials, politicians, they need to wake up because, yeah, I'm sorry. People like me are walking away from that because it's toxic.
You're being forced away too. You're being forced. I gave you an out. I've given you several outs on this to go, the chief promoter, somebody who was Black over me, and you didn't take the out. You have integrity. You have, a lot of times, you've heard this before when you interview people. Let them talk. They'll bury themselves. You haven't done it. You haven't done it. It just shows the level of integrity. And you know, it's like the people of the city you work for fucking suffered because you were forced out. When you were out, your brothers in blue, guys you work with, people keep hearing about a thin blue line. They're supportive. Were they supportive for you? Did you guys have, or were you treated like a leper? What was it like when you were out? I had throughout my entire career, I had a great relationship with everybody, and people knew it's a small agency. It was 100 people in that agency. Everybody knows each other. Everybody's in everybody's business. Everybody knows their family and things like this. It's not a big department where you can get lost and nobody knows your business and you can get transferred to this district and run away. No,
it was a small, it's a small department. And as far as what was going, everybody saw through the bullshit as I was going through it. And everybody would come to me in confidence and private. And this goes from the deputy chief to the majors to the captains to all the officers. Everybody's like, man, they're fucking with you pretty hard, you know? And look, you got to eat a lot of shit in this profession. It is what it is. You know, it's going to happen. And hopefully if you've learned your lesson by now, the correct answer when you have to get fed spoonfuls of shit is yum. Thank you. May I have another? That's how you survive. Okay. That's how you get through this, is you play the game. You play the game within with the rules that are on the book, and you respect the system. Everybody saw how they were treating me and remarked about how fucked up it was. But they wouldn't say it publicly. You know, I got all the texts. I got all the voicemails, conversations. Because, and look, I don't expect them to, too. You know, like that place was such a mess. Like people are not going to fall on the sword for you in this job. That's what people need to understand. Like people will see the shit that others are going through and be like, oh, that fucking sucks. You know, sucks to be that guy. Hey man, you know, pat him on the back. Hey, nobody is, I'm not going to say nobody. Very few people will stick their neck out for you 100%. In this job.
100%. Said that a million times. I hate hearing it from other people. In my department, the last department I was with, a small department, with 13 sworn. And 90% of them wanted a letter of no confidence written in the chief, right on the chief. So I wrote one up, went around to everybody. Not one guy would sign it. Not one. Slid under the door. What happened to me? What happened to me? Next thing you know, there's a letter of confidence written in the chief. And all but 2 signed it. And I went, wow. Well, yeah, I just couldn't sign yours. People don't get there is no blue brotherhood. There just isn't. It's horrible. I want to talk about some solutions. Before we do that, the documentary is Unbecoming. It will be in the link of the description of this video. Unbecoming, the channel is Carl Anderson on YouTube. You can watch it there. It is on Rumble as well, too, I believe. Unbecoming, you need to watch it. I'm going to commit to finish watching it because I owe you that after hearing your story. But I want to end on some kind of positive.
Before you do, and I don't know if you've got a heart out, but
no, we don't.
We kind of glossed over. So again, I retired. On paper, I am an honorably look. I'm an honorably retired police captain. Okay, so I did not get fired.
Do you get the people who do give you shit? As I get all the time, you were fired. You were fired. I go. And then what happened? Did you forget the part? I was reinstated and I retired and I was cleared of everything.
I wasn't even reinstated. Look, and again, I kind of glossed over this. After they fucked with me. So what? Look, it's obvious. The chief, she opened Pandora's box when she started entertaining these idiots who didn't know what they were doing, and then that investigation unveiled some really, really sensitive shit. She saw things that she didn't want out there, okay, as a result of the things that I was having to correct on a daily basis, okay? And again, I'm not the guy that's going to throw people under the bus. I'm the guy that's going to tell you, hey, stupid, this is what you need to fix. You fucked this up, this is what you need to fix, okay? I'm never going to come after people with paperwork if I can fix it in other means. So after she did that, I'm calling the IA investigator saying, I want the copy of the case file so I could, seek legal counsel or something, because I'm sorry, you're not going to fuck with me after everything I put through and sacrificed for this place. Yeah, you don't get to do that, So I was going to fight it. And And when I texted him, he calls me and dude, he's saying like, dude, I'm sorry, you know, the chief, she she forced me to change the findings, and I argued with her for 45 minutes. And like he's acknowledging like how fucked up it was. And I'm like, okay, yeah, fine, whatever. Just, you know, can you give me the case file? And a couple days or weeks went by and I wasn't getting the case file. So I called him again, you know, saying, hey, you know, can we, and look, we're friends, or I used to think we were friends, you know, and, you know, I knew he was going through some shit, some medical shit. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? You know, and we kind of go into can you give me the case file so I can, you know, start doing what I needed to do. And again, it felt like he was kind of hiding it. I can't say for sure if he was, you know, he had some other shit going on, so I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But in the course of this phone call, you know, we get into a little bit of a back and forth, you know, and look, I'm pissed. You know, this place just fucked me. Like, and I did nothing to deserve that. Like, so I'm having this conversation with him, and there's a little bit of like commiseration. You know, he's like, yeah, man, I agree with you. I agree with you. And then he goes and says, I'm retiring. I'm paying for my time to retire early because of your investigation. That's how sick I am to my stomach.
Oh, God, blame you. Yeah.
What's that?
He's got to blame you.
No, not me. He's blaming the organization. Like, look, JJ was the hero of that story until the very end, you know? And so he's telling me, yeah, I'm retiring because this place is a shithole. And, you know, I'm sick of the politics around here. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, but you just let the chief walk all over your investigation. Like, could you not, like, I don't know, maybe grow a spine and say, fuck you, I'm not doing it. And again, I don't expect people to fall on their sword for me. You know, it's like people are looking out for their own self-interest at this point. Because the chief was making things very uncomfortable for a lot of the administrators.
In some way, and I don't want to interrupt you, what is the difference if you and I are on patrol and you watch me beat the shit out of somebody and you don't intervene and I'm wailing away, a guy's handcuffed and I'm fucking punching him in the head, and you don't intervene? How is that not the same as chief is doing something and somebody underneath isn't calling it out? How is it not the same?
Yeah. That was my mindset too. And again, I'm pretty reasonable. Like, all I needed to hear was justification as to why, but they couldn't give me that. So that's how I knew it was all bullshit. Because if you can't give me a rational explanation for your stupid fucking actions, then you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And you need to allow somebody who does to take over. So I'm in this conversation with JJ. I'm like, bro, you know, like, you couldn't have said something. You couldn't have told her to go pound sand. You know, you just rolled over and showed her your belly like that. And then he gets kind of pissy with me. And now he starts like taking her side. He's like, oh, but you need to see it from her point of view and this and this and that. And I'm like, bro, don't give me that shit. I've been doing this for way too long. Don't give me that shit. And conversation goes forward, and what I say is, anybody who allowed this to happen, anybody who looked the other way because look, this whole, I don't think we even got into this. These cops, these 5 cops, they called in sick to schedule a mutiny against me.
Blue flu.
Okay.
Yeah. Were they disciplined for that?
No. and
who suffered for that? The citizen suffers because now you're holding guys over longer. Guys who are holding over longer could be tired. They could be in a shit mood now. They're not going to operate at the highest level of their performance. And nothing happened to these little fucking pussy cops.
Nothing happens to them. Okay. So I told him, look, whoever watches these shit cops, like, they committed a crime. If you really break it down, that's illegal. Okay. And so I said that anybody who allowed me to be treated like this while looking the other way at serious officer misconduct is a coward. Okay. Or I might have said political coward.
They're complicit too. They're complicit.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not laying that I wasn't laying it all at his feet. You know, I felt like he did what reasonably, I felt like he did what he could do, but I was just disappointed in him that he didn't take a stand, you know. But I wasn't calling him a coward. It was the chief, you know.
I don't know. I will call, because this is you, and your character is very sound. Was he aware of wrongdoing in the department from the chief?
What I'll tell you, so when this IA first started, you know, JJ spoke to me about it, you know, like off the record, like, hey, you know, don't worry, I see exactly what's going on. They're not going to get away with this. But he said something to me, and I remember it very clearly. I was in his office, and he said, "My job is to protect the chief."
Oh.
So, and at the time, because keep in mind, I'm being told this whole fucking time they're feeding me shit. It's going to get thrown out, whatever, you know. So at the time, I didn't think much of it, right? I'm like, yeah, you know, but like, because I never considered the chief to be a terrible chief. You know, she's Harvette, like, just not, you know, she was never a cop, but, you know.
Oh, she was never a cop?
Never, like, on paper, she was a cop.
Yeah,
this is why you need to watch the rest of the documentary.
It's an appointed position. Oh, please, my chief of police was a dispatcher, and he became Lake County Major Crimes Task Force head. Yes, people don't get this. They don't get this. It's an appointed position.
Well, it's a very similar situation. But, you know, our you know, a lot of us, when she got that position, you know, we kind of took the attitude that, like, you know, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. At least it's not somebody from the outside coming in here and and we figured she was a nice lady. Okay, she you know, perfectly reasonable. I never had any issues with her. But she just, you know, whatever. I'm not gonna go into that, but JJ, the IA sergeant, decided he was going to spearhead a new internal affairs complaint on me. He was going to issue some discipline because his feelings got hurt. That I said that, you know, what happened to me seems like corruption, and you know, anybody who allows this to happen is a coward. And that's why I highly, if when you get a chance, please watch the rest of it.
I'm going to watch the rest of it. What blows me away is this happens all the time. And you know what? I mean, in one big way, I mean, I respect the shit out of you, but it's like you could have made this an entire bitch session and complaint session, and you didn't. You hold accountability. What happened is it's wrong, and the people suffer. This is where police oversight needs to happen. It doesn't need to happen on the patrol level. It needs to happen on the command level, because here you have a police sergeant, police captain who is doing exactly what you need to course correct the boys and girls on the street who wear the uniform, who deal with the public every day. And you have the brass above them not letting them do their job, but nobody jumps in. Attorney General doesn't jump in. State police don't do an investigation. Department of Justice doesn't do an investigation. It's internal. It's all taken care of. This blows me away. It's just this is why I couldn't get through past 28 minutes, because it was stirring shit that I went through, and it's trauma. People don't get how you go in, you do the job, you love the job. Yeah. I was an ass. People didn't like me. I was gung-ho towards the end of my career because all of a sudden the professionalism kicked in, and I'm like, I take this job extremely seriously, and you're not liked by your coworkers, and you don't have that blue support. And then you go against the command for shit you see that's wrong, and then you're by yourself. And I've never understood that how people keep saying in the comment section of my videos, there's no such thing as a good cop. It's like, yeah, it's because once you become that good cop to a degree, you're forced out. It happens to so many that are countless. I want to I want to get more people to watch the documentary for your story. It's unbecoming. You need to check that out, Carl Anderson. But I want to talk about it. I want to go one direction to close this out. Otherwise, I'll be talking the next several hours about this because it's too much. It's too much. It's like a therapy session. I'm getting as much out of this as you are because I can fucking empathize with it. Here's what I want. You do have a standard that we expect out of our patrol officers on the street. I think that if every cop out there was more like you, the field, the profession would change. Let's talk about. We've talked about what makes a shit cop, and to be honest, you had some shit cops underneath you. What makes a professional police officer? Because I called this out yesterday. I can't remember which cop it was, the one who got in the 3 car accidents. He was interviewed and said, "Well, I flat out, are you confident in doing your job?" Well, no, I don't think anybody is. I would be, if I were a lawyer, I'd be using that against him on every fucking case. Yes, I was an expert patrol officer. I fucking love hearing that confidence and conviction. What? For the younger audience, the people who want to become cops, the guys who are currently cops, the seasoned guys who maybe have 5 years on, and they see something coming out of your mouth and they go, oh my God, this man's an inspiration. How do you course correct the profession and say, this is yours? This is Carl Anderson's standard of excellence for being a professional police officer. What do you think that consists of?
I mentioned this earlier. To be a good cop, you have to have humility and self-awareness. And you have to check your ego at the door, or it needs to be taken from you by force, by a commanding officer. That ego needs to be put away. We have to be honest. And honesty is hard sometimes because there's some uncomfortable shit that people don't want to be honest about when it comes to this job. You need to call the balls and strikes accurately. It's not personal. Like for the younger guys, your sergeant is not picking on you. And look, here's the cheat code. Find out and look, some sergeants are dicks, without a doubt. I've had dick sergeants. Some guys fuck with you just for the sake of fucking with you. But recognize the difference. Recognize where you came up short and take responsibility. I have never, and look, again, this had to get beaten out of me. If a sergeant brought something to my attention, oh, hey, you messed this up. Oh, no, I didn't because blah, 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 blah. And you just start making up excuses because you're tying your ideas and your thoughts to yourself, which is not productive. Take, like Jocko Willing, extreme ownership, own it. Yeah, I fucked that up. Sorry, I'll try harder. And then make an actual effort to do better, Sergeants, they need to keep their eyes on the goal. Like, be the person that is setting the sail of the ship and pointing the mast in the right direction. It's hard, especially as a sergeant. The job of a sergeant, a patrol sergeant, is so demanding. You're dealing with a bunch of children. They're bitching about each other. They're pointing fingers. Oh, so and so. And it's. You need to recognize that you're dealing with human beings, and all the little quirks and flaws that go along with their humanity. Recognize what's a mistake and what's a betrayal, because everybody's going to make mistakes. I made plenty of them. You can write a whole book on all the mistakes that I've made, but it's what I've learned and what I came away with, after I learned from my mistakes. And that's going to happen. Again, we're not going to have the perfect RoboCop. Like we're still, our selection pool is still the same generation of people, but we need to be honest about what it's going to take to move this profession in the right direction. So, yeah, leaders, make sure you're holding your guys accountable, because it's so easy to look the other way It's so easy to avoid uncomfortable conversations. Command staff. And again, this goes, put away your ego. You're not special. As a cadet in the academy, you are not special. As a patrol officer, you are not special. As a detective, SWAT operator, sergeant, major, chief, you are not special. You are not the main character. You need to be focused on the mission itself. But people are just so self-absorbed that it's really hard for them to acknowledge, because everybody's out for themselves. It's a very selfish business. It's full of type A personalities and narcissists. And there's nothing wrong with that. The world needs narcissists. We wouldn't have gone to the moon without narcissists. There's a room for them. But you need, in a lot of cases, you need some righteous narcissism. People that put the mission first and the public first. Cops need to stop sniffing their own farts in their own echo chamber and talk to the citizens like they're human beings. And they need to imbue professionalism in their interactions, every single interaction. No matter who it is, no matter how they're talking to you, be professional. And the thing is, too, it's like, how familiar are you with Jocko Willink?
I am.
Yeah. So he has a phrase that I don't know if he coined it, but I heard it and it resonated. But he says you can't fake bravery, because if you do the brave thing, that's still bravery. If you do the brave thing without even, so the same thing can be said for professionalism. You don't have to just go through the motions. It's not that hard. Play the game. Don't let people get into your head. Don't let people, push your buttons. Because if you're the guy that shows up and starts yelling and this and this and that, bro, you're telling the people exactly how to push your buttons. And you are opening a window to your own psychology and your own insecurities. Be respectful. No matter who you're talking to. Don't raise your voice. Maintain a constant demeanor that is unshakable, because that fucks with people and that makes people back off more than so many uses of forces. So many of these dick measuring contests that you see with the public and the cops on YouTube and shit, so many of them could have been avoided by an officer being a little more professional, a little more assertive. You've mentioned, I've seen some of your videos. You mentioned it's like you show up on scene and you command that, this is your scene. You own it here. And whatever outcome, you're fine with. Some cops, they like yelling. I hate when cops talk down to people for no reason. Look, there's dickheads out there. People are gonna try you, and it kind of leads me into the First Amendment auditors and the Second Amendment auditors. Have the humility to recognize that they have a purpose. They're not fucking with you for the sake of fucking with you. A lot of them are. A lot of them are fucking douchebags. Okay, but play the game. That's a stress test of where we are in this country, in this profession. So recognize the dynamic there. Don't fucking yell at people. Oh, you can't film me and this and that, bro. We need to be beyond that. Okay. And the way we get there is to put your fucking ego away, play the game. And look, I played the game and I got shafted. That doesn't mean that you can't play the game better than me. Again, cynicism is the beginning of wisdom. So I think it's the disgruntled cops that have been through the ringer. They got chewed up and spit out, and fucking their sergeants have, kind of written them all off. And no, those are the guys that know the system. They know the problems. They see the unfairness. Those are the guys that need to step up and say, you know what? I've been through this shit. I want to do better. Not for me, but for the organization, for the profession as a whole.
That's where we're at today with you. Where are you headed now with this? You're not active, but you still can play a massive role in this profession. Where are you going to head?
Well, I'm obviously I took some time off. I don't. Again, my career was pretty rough. Okay, especially after that first 5 years, there were a lot of ups and downs. I don't regret any of it, but it was pretty hard to stomach a lot of that shit, and I don't see myself in a hurry to jump back into the monkey suit and start all over again. I really enjoy conversations like these. I think they're important. I think you're doing great work. I think some of your takes are a little spicy. And, maybe one day we'll have another conversation about some of those and some back and forth. But I needed to detox from just years of just feeding myself shit and getting fed. Again, you got to eat a lot of shit in this job. And I'm taking a little break to kind of recenter.
I hope that break isn't too long. 40 is still young, and I think any agency would just be absolutely benefited with your mindset, your level of expertise, and your compassion for the professionalism of this job. And I think any area residents who had you would benefit from it. It's Unbecoming. Carl Anderson is the channel. Unbecoming on YouTube. Unbecoming on Rumble. Is there anything else you want to plug at all that we could put out for you?
No. I plugged my boy Mike over at Copville.
Yeah, he was on a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, the Instagram algorithm kind of nuked him, and now he's got his podcast up and running. So we show him some love. Yeah. But follow me on Instagram if you want, Carl Anderson _. Right now I'm just building my truck, and my idea with that, and people think it's frivolous, but what I'm doing is I'm kind of I'm painting my truck, but I have no business painting cars. And my goal to do that is to just kind of show people, hey, you can just do stuff. And whatever you suck at, you can get better at, because that's you're not going to get better at anything without sucking at it. So this is kind of my goal for now. I'll be finished painting it in a couple days or so. So if you want to see me do that, but I'll be coming on shows like this as often as people will let me.
Well, I think there's a need for your voice. I think that there's a lot of education that can be had out there, and now people don't have to go to the academy for it anymore. You have YouTube conversations, you have podcast conversations, and they're important. There's a big part of me that listens to your ideals of law enforcement, and boom, all of a sudden I'm 26 years old again, and I'm a rookie at roll call, and I'm like, God, there is something about men specifically. We crave leadership, and we crave strength and righteousness. And when you hear the right people talk, it transports you instantly into a mindset of, I would follow, I would serve alongside. This is what I wish your standard was more prevalent and available to people, and hopefully with access like on podcasts and out there, and it will, and we will change cop culture together. I can't thank you enough for being on today. I took a ton of your time. We will have you back on, because I do want to have the discussions where there's disagreement and all that. I crave becoming more, even though I'm no longer doing the job anymore. But that's
right. And before we let go, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. So obviously, people saw that I was going through some nonsense at my former department. I am happy. I'm very pleased to report that department is under stellar leadership right now. And my sources over there have told me that place has made a complete 180. And I could not be happier and more proud for all of them. Even the little turds that came after me. I hope you guys can get your shit together and do what's best for yourselves and the community. So I have no bad blood between myself and anybody over there. I I feel privileged to have completed my career at that agency.
Oh, hopefully you, I'm not going to lie. I hope that you do decide to get back involved and someone else picks you up. And then, 5-10 years from now, we see you in a stronger leadership position, sheriff, chief, something like that. And you are making waves in a good, positive way to change a culture. Guys, Cop Talk Live, changing cop culture. Subscribe, like, comment below, share, go watch Unbecoming. Carl Anderson YouTube channel, Rumble channel. This is important content because this happens. It happens far too often, and we need it to change because we cannot afford to have men like Carl leave this profession. Other than that, you guys be safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.